Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's audio community plug-in here with Avid. My name is Gil Gowing. I'm a pro audio solutions specialist here at Avid, and I will be taking you kind of as your host for today's plug-in. We got a really, I think, great presentation for you today. We've got our friends at Antares that will be taking us through some of their products, especially the new auto-tune hybrid. So definitely going to want to jump into that. All right, so really excited to have a couple of great people from Antares that are going to be speaking to us today. We've got Anthony Gordon. I've known Anthony for many, many years. Great guy. He's the marketing director at Antares. And we also have Henrik Bridger, who's a senior product specialist and part of the QA team at Antares. And he'll actually be doing the demo of their different plugins and what they have to offer and how it kind of pertains to Pro Tools. So without further ado, kind of now that we've got the housekeeping stuff away, I actually want to bring on Anthony here. I'm going to stop sharing and we'll get Anthony to come on. And Anthony, I'm going to let you kind of take it away and give us an overview of what kind of what's going on at Antares, what the company's all about, and what you got going on for us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gil, for having us. It's great to see your face. Gil and I used to do a lot of demo road shows all over the world doing, Pro Tools stuff everywhere. And Gil is just one of my favorite educators, instructors about Pro Tools. I think he's probably the best power user in the world. So thank you guys, everybody, for coming, register for the webinar. We're so excited to be here with you. Today, we're going to be talking a lot about AutoTune Unlimited, which is our flagship subscription program. If you're not aware, as a Pro Tools subscriber, you are entitled to 3 free months of AutoTune Unlimited. Regularly, it's $24.99 a month. And what it is it's not just AutoTune. It's every edition of AutoTune, as well as all 11 plugins in the AVOX collection, which is our collection of pro vocal plugins. So a lot of questions, a lot of times we get asked the question, what's the difference between these different versions of AutoTune? And each one is kind of designed around a specific workflow, although there's a lot in common with all of them. We'll talk you through a little bit about what the different editions of AutoTune does, but we will be focusing on AutoTune Hybrid, which is really exciting for us because it's the first edition of AutoTune created specifically for Pro Tools users. And if you're on HDX or Carbon, this is going to take advantage of all the DSP that you get in your HDX system, and it's just going to work faster, cleaner, better. It's really going to make you feel better about that HDX rig that you've invested in. So when we're also showing the AVOX plugins, which some people might not be as familiar with, but these are awesome and very fun and very professional vocal production plugins. So AutoTune Unlimited is really, it's not just about pitch correction, it's about a complete vocal production workflow, and it can really help step up your game. Some of these are great utilities for de-essing and adding a little bit of tube saturation, that sort of thing. And then some of them are incredibly creative, powerful effects like Mutator, which is one of the favorite sound design tools in the professional sound design community. But there's just a ton of stuff. Great harmonizers, Harmony Engine, which if you listen to Billie Eilish at all, that's basically kind of the sound of her record. So there's just a lot of cool stuff that we're going to be showing you. A lot of these AVOX plugins, like I said, these are on really hit current records that sound great. And we're going to show you a little bit how to get that sound. So just a moment here, we're going to kick it over to Henrik Bridger, who's probably the best AutoTune power user in the world. But whether you're a beginner or power user, I think you're going to find a lot of value in being able to spend some time with Henrik and learn how these plugins work. So with that said, I'm going to kick it over to Henrik. He'll show you how all these plugins can work together along with Pro Tools Hybrid to really help you step up your vocal productions and start producing vocals without limits, as they say. So with that, I'd like to kick it over to my friend and colleague, Henrik Bridger.
There we are. Well, thanks for having us over here, Gil and everyone else. Looking forward to show a little bit of our Auto-Tune Unlimited bundle, and that obviously shown in Pro Tools and how they work well together. So let's see here. I need to share my screen. Okay. Let's see here. So I'm going to start the first part here showing how to use Auto-Tune Hybrid, because that's, of course, our newest edition, which is for Pro Tools, primarily HDX and Carbon, but will also work, of course, on the L6 Live consoles. And even if you don't use an HDX system, you can actually use it natively, which I will be doing, because since I'm using Zoom to share the audio, I have no DSP power for that. So, but everything, of course, can be done DSP. That's what I'm going to be showing here. So I have a session here with a band called Voodoo Stew, and I'm going to show both the lead vocal and the two backing vocals, and I'm going to use some of our other plugins to in this session. I'm going to show Duo from the AVOX bundle, Inquire also from the AVOX, and our Warm tube saturator, which is also from the same bundle. So, of course, they're all part of Auto-Tune Unlimited. So I'm going to, let's see here, bypass these plugins for now first. And just play a few measures of what this sounds like.
Said I feel the rays of sunshine, sun on my face, liquid joy dripping in my soul, just when everything else feels out of place. Funk injections in my ears gives me a mellowness on which I rely. But missing you, what all I can do is infuse your name into my sighs. Imagine there's a place and a time when everything is so very fine, and I imagine holding you in my arms, and I breathe in deep and smile, remembering I feel you, I feel you.
Okay, so there's a little bit of the beginning of the song. I'm going to start from the first verse here, and I'm going to bring in Auto-Tune Hybrid on the lead vocals. We're going to mute the backgrounds for now. And here is Auto-Tune Hybrid. So actually, I'm going to put an instance of it ahead. So here is what it comes up with stock. So this is the basic view. There's two different views to this plugin. You have the basic view, which is what we're looking at, and then if you click the advanced tab up here, then you add more features that you may not need all the time, hence us moving it, hiding it. So this is the same as, for example, Auto-Tune Pro, Auto-Tune Artist, which look the same. Then we have our input type. What is it that you want to tune? What's the closest to the source? We have our key, we have our scale. We have classic mode, which I'll mention a little bit later in a different session, which is the classic mode actually switches from the current algorithm to the old Auto-Tune 5 algorithm. We have detune here, which is if the audio originally is tuned to anything different than 440, you change it accordingly. So if it's tuned to 442, you would set this at 442. Tracking is a parameter that If it's a clean vocal, you can probably just set it and forget it. No, don't worry about it. But if there's perhaps some noise in it, from if it's a live recording or there's some artifacts, you turn it down to a less choosy value, a higher value. And if it's really clean, and maybe you're still getting some artifact because from other things, such as clicks and pops in the audio, you would probably turn this up a little bit. Then you have the mix button, which is just like a blend knob. So you can actually use the tune signal and the original signal and mix and max it as you want. Going down here, this is probably the most important parameter of auto-tune. This is the retune speed, which sets how fast auto-tune will correct the pitch in milliseconds. So this value goes from 0 to 400, and it's milliseconds and nothing else. Default is 20, which is fairly fast, but for modern pop, it's kind of around where it sits. If you want more of a transparent correction, excuse me, you would turn this down to a slower value. And if you want the more of the auto-tune effect, that's also, of course, very popular, you would turn it up to a higher value. We have humanize, which increases if there's a vocal that has more vibrato on held longer notes, you would turn that up to let the vibrato through, so you wouldn't clamp down so much on that with the tuning. Flex tune is the next parameter, and that basically, if you have two pitches, you have a G and a G sharp, you have 50 cents on either side of the note, and if you turn this knob up, you will basically shrink that and create what I call a no man's land in between the two notes. So if you slide on the note or somebody bends the note, autotune will not correct that. It'll let go until you get closer to the next note, and then autotune will bring that into pitch. Natural vibrato just does just that. It adds or takes away vibrato in the natural, what's in the original audio. Let's see here. So advanced view, I won't be using too much today. I'm just going to give an overview. We have a synthetic vibrato section here in the middle, where you can do some special effects or some subtle additional vibrato, if you like, based upon a sine wave, square wave, or a sawtooth. Your choice. Down here, you can customize what scale. If see now, I have it set to chromatic, but you could technically set, if you want to set to C major here, you would just click this, and then all the notes in C major would be. But then if you needed to add or remove other notes, you can do that here. Say, oh yeah, there's going to be a section when there's a a secondary dominant chord where the F sharp will be. Then you would add that back in, so F sharp would also be available. And
Henrik, let me ask you a quick question. What if somebody's music theory isn't really killer and they need to figure out the key of the song?
We have a plugin called AutoTune. Oh, sorry. Of course we do have a plugin called AutoTune. We have a plugin called AutoKey, which I was going to get to. Thanks for, I should probably have started with that maybe. So AutoKey is here. Let me bring that up. So this plugin will listen to the audio in the session. I have it here on my master bus. I'm going to bypass the vocals and start from the beginning. And then we'll click here. So AutoKey is listening, and we play. There we go. So now this has determined that my key is E minor, which it is. And then here we have this little button called Send to AutoTune. So this will send this information and update all my instances in my session to E minor. So I have these two open. So if you look here and here on these two plugins, and I push send. There. Now I've updated to E minor in both plugins, and actually the other ones that are also in this track. So for this one, I happen to know that there are notes that are not in the key of E minor as well. So I'm going to actually leave it on chromatic, but this is how you would determine if you have a song that's where you don't know the key or scale. Let's see. So I think I was pretty much done. Also, one part that I didn't mention yet here in tune is that you can actually build key and scales from MIDI here. You would send a MIDI channel in from a keyboard or from a MIDI track or MIDI controller, and you can either play a scale in and Auto-Tune will create a scale based upon what you played, or you can actually target the notes directly in real time via MIDI. So if you hold one note down on your keyboard, every note would be pitched to that. So that's the overview of the Auto-Tune hybrid interface. I'm going to bypass that version. So,
hey, Henrik, before we move on, we had a question come in that I thought, but since we were just talking about this, I wanted to go ahead and see about getting you to answer it.
Sure.
From one of the people on looking to ask, when you click send Auto-Tune on AutoKey, the plugin changed also the input type in Auto-Tune. Actually, is that normal?
No, I had one set here. Let me bring that one up. See, this one was in default mode here. This one was set to soprano, and the instance I had earlier, I had actually set that to alto and tenor as well.
Okay.
So here, we'll change that to something else. No, not leaning is not too often, but okay. So another thing you can do in Auto-Tune, if you do know the key, you can select it here. So if we had it on E minor, so if I send this now, it should just update the keys, not the input type.
All right, so key and scale, but not input type.
Correct.
Awesome. All right.
Yep.
Sorry about interrupting. Wanted to get that out of the way while we were here.
No, I should have mentioned that too. Let's see. Let's remove that for now. So on this particular lead vocals, the vocal doesn't actually need that much tuning. It's fairly in tune, but there are some spots that aren't perfect. So I have chosen a fairly slow retune speed at 70, 71. A little bit of flex tune because there are some slides. Natural vibrato I left alone because it didn't need to address. And then humanize, I turn it up because there are some longer held notes with nice vibratos. I don't want to take away from that. So if, let's see, mute that. So if we start here, say at pre-chorus 2, I'm going to bypass Auto-Tune for now.
Imagine there's a place and a time when everything is so very fine, and I imagine holding you in my arms, and I breathe in deep and smile, remembering.
Okay, I'm going to put Auto-Tune on, and you should be hearing the just touch it. You shouldn't be here that I have Auto-Tune on it, because that's not what I want in this case. I just want to clean it up and tighten down the pitch a little bit more. So here we go.
Imagine there's a place and a time when everything is so very fine, and I imagine holding you in my arms, and I breathe in deep and smile, remembering I feel
on that last note, you can definitely hear the vibrato gets let through. And had I had this down all the way, you would, for example, it was right here, you would have heard it. You would not have heard the vibrato be let through as much.
I feel you.
It's subtle, but there's definitely a difference there.
So Henrik,
Okay.
I actually noticed while that was playing back, you switched from the scale from minor to chromatic. Do you find that makes, like with vocalists or vocal lines like this, and then they're kind of doing some kind of inner notes between the scale, that it helps to kind of, instead of clamping down and moving it not where it was intended, but kind of let some of those grace notes through? You find that's a good technique to use?
Yeah, yes, on this, a vocal performance like this, where obviously the vocalist is very accomplished, I find out that I use chromatic more often in case, and I know there are some other notes in this song that aren't in E minor, so I don't want to correct it to a note that is, although correcting the scale is not what the vocalist is intending to sing. So that's what, in this case, I would leave it on chromatic. And since I changed it with AutoKey, I wanted to make sure I didn't correct it to the wrong note. Okay, let's see. The next thing I wanted to show was, I'm going to bring up autotune on the background vocals too. Take that out. And on these instances, I have chosen a little tighter. I have, and here, let's change that. I chose a faster retune speed, so I clamped down a little bit harder on that, since it's background vocals, and that will, so it doesn't interfere with the lead vocals and just provides a nice background for the lead vocal. And I'd put a little bit of humanize on it, and no flex tune, and just a fairly fast retune speed for this type of music. So together, tuned, they will sound like, here we'll take from pre-chorus 2.
Imagine there's a place and a time when everything is so very fine, and I imagine holding you in my arms, and I breathe in deep and smile, remembering I feel.
Okay, so now I have put my tuning in for these 3 vocal tracks. The next thing I wanted to do, and I would probably automate this coming in and out of different sections, but I just wanted to show our next plugin I wanted to show, which is Avox Duo. This is a doubler plugin. So I put it on the lead vocals to just add a little bit of width to it. So we have 4 parameters here: pitch variation, timing variation, timbre of the vocals, and the vibrato. I have turned up a little bit of pitch and timing variation, a little bit of vocal timbre in the double, and left the vibrato alone. And here I have panned them 50-50 to each side. So the double is here, but original here, and then of course you have individual volume. But I'm gonna leave them all the way up. Yeah, I'm not gonna change the volume on either one of them. So if we solo this and listen a little bit, chorus, listen to a couple measures just on its own without the doubler.
Imagine there's a place and a time when everything is so very fine, and
Now I'm going to add it in, and it's going to hear a subtle doubling, which is, I think, sounds really nice, especially on this track.
Imagine there's a place and a time when everything is so very fine, and I imagine holding you in my arms, and I breathe in deep and smile, remembering
Okay, so that's our duo plugin. I'll play it all together when I've added a little something to our background vocals too. So on the background vocals, on each one of them, I've sent them to a bus, and I have these buses here, and I have inserted our choir plugin on each one of them. Let's see here. Well, those are grouped. So in choir, you have the option of set your choir size from 4, 8, 16, and 32 voices here. You have a vibrato rate, a pitch, and a timing change of the, I've set it to 32, of the 32 voices. So it sounds more like, you can have it very tight sounding or more open, which I felt like this worked for this song. And then of course you have a stereo spread here. I just have it spread the whole way. So the vocal, this background vocal here is being bussed over to this track where choir is tucked in just underneath the background vocal. So first, without it, it's going to sound like this.
Imagine there's a place and a time when everything is so very fine.
Okay, so when I turn it on, it's going to sound like this.
Imagine there's a place and a time when everything is so very fine. Imagine holding you in my arms.
So if we add the second vocal to this, because there's two, they're kind of independent background tracks, it'll sound really nice with the choir on both of them. Let's see here.
Imagine there's a place and a time when everything is so very fine. Imagine holding you in my arms.
Okay, so that's how that sounds. Now, now we put it all together. So we have hybrid on all vocals, we have duo on the lead, and choir on the backgrounds. So from that same section, let's see.
Imagine there's a place and a time when everything is so very fine. And I imagine holding you in my arms, and I breathe in deep and smile, remembering I feel you, I feel you.
So there's auto-tune and duo and choir. The last thing I wanted to show in this session was actually something, our AVOX Warm plugin, and I'm felt there's a Rhodes keyboard solo over here, and I felt like adding warm to it with a little bit of gain, adding a crunch tube here, turning it up fairly high, and then turning down the outputs. I don't overdrive everything, but it adds a nice kind of grit to the keyboard solo. So if we solo, oops, let's see here. So here's the keyboard solo without tube on it. Okay, so with it on, anyway, I think it feels like it adds a nice kind of, yeah, crunch to it. So
it sounds like a legit like 70s Rhodes, right? I mean, that's kind of what you want the Rhodes sound to be, right?
Yeah, have a little bit of dirtiness on it, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so in the mix, it sounds, I think it sounds really nice. Here we go. So there we have that. I was going to switch to a different session here and show Harmony Engine, which is a very popular plugin, one of our plugins that is an auto-tune that Anthony mentioned earlier. And this is a session where I chose to use Harmony Engine as and create harmonies from MIDI. Let's see, there we go.
Yeah, so while you're doing that, just to Anthony, just to be clear, so all the plugins that Henrik just showed, Auto-Tune Hybrid, all the AVOX plugins, that all of those come as part of the Auto-Tune Unlimited subscription, correct?
Correct. Those in total, it's 11 from the AVOX collection. So that's all the harmonizers, duo, choir, harmony engine, warm, the tube saturation, but a ton of others. Sybil for, easily controlling sibilids, Aspire, which it affects the breathiness of a vocal, which very special plugin. I mean, that's not something you see a lot on the market because it's a really essential tool, really, if you're trying to do really pro vocal production, because it lets you dial down the huffing and puffing if you have a kind of wheezy singer, but it can also increase the breathiness of it. So it sounds like a little bit more sexy and sultry. So if you have a singer who doesn't really have that vocal quality, you can dial that in. It sounds really, really natural. And then there's a few others, Mutator, which can give you alien and monster voices, Throat, which is the world's only plugin for vocal throat modeling. So you can actually, it's a model of the human vocal tract, which is really cool and creative. So yeah, all of these come with Auto-Tune Unlimited, as well as Hybrid, as well as Auto-Tune Pro for, the pros out there who, we have a famous graph mode, which is really kind of essential once you get to the pro level mixing.
Yep.
But we also have Auto-Tune Access, which if you're just getting started, it's like a completely fastest and easiest way to just start tuning. And Auto-Tune can just completely get out of your way, which is why we have multiple versions of Auto-Tune. We have Auto-Tune Artist, which is optimized for live performance. So if you're a live sound guy with a venue console, are they still called venue consoles?
Yeah, Venue S6L is
okay.
current. Yep.
Yeah, so you can run that live on your venue console and have like bulletproof tuning for live performances, which, there's the number of top touring acts in the world using that would probably surprise you. But yeah, all of this comes with Auto-Tune Unlimited. And once again, if you're already a Pro Tools subscriber, you can get it free for 3 months, no commitment. Just give it a shot. And I think you're going to find that, it's not just useful, it's incredibly creative, and it really can help you step up the vocal production, the entire workflow.
All right. So in this session, I have, move that down. I have 4 MIDI tracks here that I've programmed the harmonies from the original harmonies, actually, and then that's coming from the lead vocal track, which is here. So Harmony is a really deep plugin, and it would take me several hours to go through everything. So I'm going to do it as quickly as I can. So you have the input vocal coming in here, the lead vocal, or if it's you're harmonizing something else. Then you can use up to 4 additional harmonies on top of the original track. You have a section here for humanization, pitch variation, timing variation. Over here is where you set what kind of harmonies you want to create and what they're based upon. So I have a drop down here if you want to set fixed intervals, scale intervals based on the key and scale, and that would also work with auto key. If you want to set the key and scale in multiple versions of harmony, and you can do it with 1 click from auto key. You have chord degrees, which you would set various major minor chords in various and you also can set it in inversion. You have 7th chord, you have major 7s, dominant 7s, and so forth. And then you have 3 different MIDI types of the way you can set it via chords from a controller or a MIDI track, or if you have multiple MIDI sources, you can do it that way. Or in my case, I set it to 4 individual MIDI channels, and so each track goes to one of the channels. Over here, it's a section where you can program your own presets, settings here, and then automate them in Pro Tools if you want to do that. As I said earlier, this would take hours to really show what you can do completely with this plugin.
It's crazy how natural that sounds. It's crazy how real that sounds. I mean, it sounds like overdubs on overdubs, but it's it just sounds really, really natural.
Yeah. And that's what the cool thing, I think, with a lot of our plugins, you can make them sound completely natural, so you don't even know that they're there, or you can go over the top if you want that sound. So
one thing I really like about it is being able to, have different MIDI tracks with the different notes and being able to just augment certain words. That is another thing I think that really makes it sound very natural. It's not like, with some of the other modes, you can just kind of turn it on and it would just follow the entire lead vocal and everything would have a harmony on it, which would, that might work in some instances. But when you're just, kind of just accenting certain notes, that just takes it to a whole other level in the arrangement. And that sounds amazing.
Yeah. All right. The next thing I wanted to show was a little bit of graphic mode tuning it with Auto-Tune Pro, because I feel like that is something that as you get up in higher level and with Auto-Tune Unlimited, since you do have Auto-Tune Pro, once you really, really want to do detailed edit, pitch manipulation, or just cleaning up something small, I think graphic mode is the most powerful tool that we have. So I am going to change sessions here again. I'm gonna bring up another session here by a singer, producer, songwriter, mastering engineer from Nashville. Her name is Justine Blazer. This is a song that we have gotten from her to use for these kind of demos. Let's see. Oops. Let me switch there. So let's see here. I have Auto-Tune Pro on the vocal track here. I'm going to hear a little, oops, wrong button. Bypass it, and this is the untuned vocal. Again, this is a really, really great singer, and there's very little tuning that needs to be done, hence me wanting to use graphical mode. So gonna play from the first tree. Actually, we can take a few measures here in the beginning. Let's see.
What you gonna do? I'm breaking those chains, step out and help me now. I'm coming back for you. Can't shake me, won't break me, don't even try. My mind's made up and I've had a little hard luck, but nothing's gonna break my stride. Ooh, say can't you see? I'm living my American dream. Rolling down the road, life is short and time is gone. Can't you see there's no guarantees? No more living for the money and greed. Playing out of box, strumming my guitar, living off the money in my tip jar. It's more than I'll ever need, 'cause you can't buy free.
Okay, so we're going to put Auto-Tune on here, and we're going to use graph mode. So I'm going to bring this up. Okay, so I've blown up the window so we have a bigger graph to work with. And I am going to show my favorite little trick, which you can do in Pro Tools. here you have to track in the audio. So if it's a 5-minute song, it will take 5 minutes unless you have Pro Tools, I think 12.4 or later. We select a track in the pitch. We come down here, we right click on the plugin and say commit this insert. You have to push the tracking before you do this. And you do this, you leave the commit to track, copy everything, and you say with the source track, you say do nothing. Then we click OK. Obviously, it takes a little bit of time, but not as much as tracking in 5 minutes. Boom. Now I've tracked in the whole time in faster than real time, and you get a double track at the bottom here, which you can then just delete. There. So now I have the whole vocal tracked in. Here. Let's see. I was going to let's see. Start at the pre-chorus one is what I thought. Okay. Let's see. I'm actually going to solo the vocal for this so I can see.
Ooh, say, can't you see?
Okay, so these red curves are the original audio curves. They're behind for a reference, so you see what you started with. And then up here you have 3 different ways of correcting. It's a line tool, you have a curve tool, and a note tool. And they do different things, and you can adjust each pitch correction object individually and set an individual retune speed or vibrato or throat length on this. So with something like this, where it's so close to the pitch, I probably wouldn't do very much. I might on this here, I'm going to start showing the note tool because it's probably the one I use the most. So, okay, so we see that it's a little sharp here, but it's very tiny. I would just come in here and draw a note over there. Let me zoom that in a little bit. And now you can see the green curve is what the output pitch is going to be. So if I change the retune speed, here, now you're going to see, and it's going to go further into the next note depending on how high I go. So for something like this, I've set it to a default of 20 milliseconds, and it's just going to clean it up a little bit. For this note, since it's a bend, I would just leave that. And with these type of bigger vibratos like this, she has a really great vibrato, and I don't feel like I want to do too much to that, but I want to center the pitch a little bit. So in this case, I would choose what we have, this little tool here called the line tool. Basically, you put an anchor, and then there's your pitch. So if I would click there now, it would obviously make some weird slidey noise. But I would go here to the end of that note, double click. And now you can see the green curve has tightened it a little bit. I would probably actually back off a little bit on that. Maybe like that. I don't know, maybe that's a little much. Something like that. So if we listen to before and after on this, you're going to hear some slight differences. Actually, we'll include this note over here too. So this one, I would do the same thing. I would put a line here to about there, and I would slow it down a little bit, but tighten it a hair. All right, So here's without, before.
Ooh, say, can't you see?
Okay. So with it on, it'll sound like this.
Ooh, say, can't you see?
So this note here, maybe that's a little bit too much. I might bring that down a little bit because I feel like it's tightened up a little bit more.
Ooh, say, can't you see?
So I think that sounds a little cleaner, and since in the mix it'll obviously sound a lot, you would just blend better with the mix, I think. Let's see here.
Ooh, say, can't you see?
I think this is a really cool example, by the way, of, you know, when the double-edged sword of autotune is sometimes people say, oh, people use it because they can't sing. Like, obviously this woman can sing. It's a great vocal performance. There's really nothing wrong with it, but it's a great way to get like a little bit of a subtle sweetening on it, which doesn't change dramatically the pitch. It's still a good performance that she gave. It just sweetens it. So like you said, it sits much better in the mix, right?
Mm-hmm. And finally, I just wanted to show the curve tool as well. Obviously this plugin is, or this section of autotune is really, really deep, and there's endless amount of things you can do with it. So I'm just basically touching the bare minimum here. Here, there's a little bit of pitchiness here and there. So to not do any harm, I would choose the curve here and then perhaps just draw in a little bit. Leave that slide alone here, up here. Maybe I'll just tighten it a little bit like that. So let's see. Oh, on this end note, I would probably maybe draw a little bit like that. So if we listen to before and after, the soul of it.
I'm living my.
So with it on,
I'm living my.
it's very, very subtle, but it just touches it a little bit and just clamps down a little bit upon it where, I mean, you can argue that maybe doesn't need it, but since so much of today's vocal is tuned, we're kind of retrained our ears to hear stuff more in tune. So yeah, that's what I would do there. And then I would make my way through with these three tools and go through every nuance and until I was done. So that's basically just touching on graphical mode. Finally, I wanted to show the autotune effect because it's a question we get asked, or I get asked all the time. How do you get the autotune effect sound if you want that? So I am going to switch to another session here.
And how are we doing on time, Gil? I know we're coming up on the hour.
Yeah, we're up on the hour. As long as this last example, I think we've been actually answering the questions along the way. So we are actually doing pretty good. If we can, we'll get through this example and I think we can wrap it up.
Okay, perfect. This won't take very long. So this song happens to be in G sharp minor. I happen to know that. So I'm going to set it to that. And this is a male vocalist, kind of R&B-esque sounding. So here is without autotune.
Well, when you think you got it all together is when you find that it's falling apart. You can't count on the ground you stand on.
So it's a little pitchy, but not too bad. So if you just wanted an easy pitch correction here, put autotune hybrid on it, set your key scale, and I'm going to put a slowish retune speed for now, just to show what it sounds like pitched.
Well, when you think you got it all together is when you find that it's falling apart.
All right. So then people always ask me at trade shows or whatever, via email, how do I get the auto-tune effect? So the answer is pretty simple. Turn the retune speed all the way up. Because then it's just instantaneously pitch correct, and then you're gonna get that kind of stepped sound. So here we go.
Well, when you think you got it all together is when you find that it's falling apart. You can't count on the ground you stand on. You're walking around like you're in the dark.
And the last thing is classic mode. This is the old Auto-Tune 5 algorithm, which I'm going to switch in. And when I do that, you're going to see that flex tune disappears because that was never part of that version. This sound is a little grittier sounding, and it's really loved for, especially for the auto-tune effect. So maybe you can hear a difference, maybe you can't. I kind of know what to listen for, but it's like that there's a shimmer in the upper frequencies that you may hear here.
Well, when you think you got it all together is when you find that it's falling apart. You can't count on the ground you stand on. You're walking around like you're in the dark.
Anyhow, so there's Auto-Tune Hybrid with classic mode on it, doing the auto-tune effect.
Adds a little bit more of a robotic sound to it, huh?
Yeah, it does. It totally does. So
wow, that's quite a lot of tools that you get there with all of that in Auto-Tune Unlimited. So, I mean, you really can. I mean, from the beginner, just with the very simple version Auto-Tune, all the way up to Auto-Tune Pro, where you can just dial in every nuance, every note, and anything in between. I mean, you've pretty much got every single tuning tool that you need, and then all the other great effects, especially that harmony engine. That was actually a pretty amazing, cool plugin. I haven't had a chance to play with yet, but I'm definitely going to be checking that out very soon.
yeah, harmony engine is a really, really cool plugin. I mean, just for harmonies alone, or even as a doubler, you can put all the voices to the unison and then treat just the vocal timbre of each one to get a really nice doubling sound, or a thickening for both leads and backgrounds.
And I think I mentioned at the top of the show that the Harmony Engine is one of those ones that was used really extensively and used a really creative effect on the Billie Eilish record. In a way that it wasn't meant to sound like a completely natural, 4-10-piece harmony. It was done to sound like a completely new creative effect, which is kind of cool because, auto-tune, used for tuning, but also revolutionary vocal effect that has its own sound and its own character. And I think, especially with Harmony Engine, people are finding a lot of ways to kind of rediscover that sort of magic with a new sound.
Awesome. So just make sure everybody that's here in the Zoom call and hopefully out on our other streaming services, we've posted down the comments of the chat sections. I want to just reiterate what Anthony said up front. I mean, basically, all Pro Tools, current Pro Tools subscribers are entitled to 3-month subscription to Auto-Tune Unlimited. So we've put some links there. If you haven't activated that yet, please go check that out. That's a great, great tool. And these aren't time-limited demos, but it's an actual 3 full month subscription, right, Anthony?
That's correct. Yeah, everything, basically every professional vocal effect that we make, you get for 3 months. And yeah, I encourage you to download your free copy and dig in and have some fun. Yeah,
and just one right before we go here, you're seeing it on the screen right now, Auto-Tune Hybrid. That particular plugin is obviously really a great plugin for those that are using HDX and Carbon, as that actually runs on those DSPs. So you can actually, while you're tracking, be able to use those live in that really low latency DSP mixer for your monitoring purposes. Then you can take it out, switches back over to native, and then you can kind of take it from there and tweak however you need for that vocal track for that particular session. So I just want to really quickly thank both Anthony and Henrik for being here. Great session today. Thank all of you out there for hanging there with us and checking this out. We really appreciate you being on these. Stay safe, and we will definitely see you next time. Watch out here real soon for the next announcement of when the next one's going to be coming about. And thanks, and have a great day. Appreciate y'all.